This is a Rogue Media Network podcast.
Hey y'all, I'm April.
And I'm Caroline.
And this
is your Bloody Happy Hour.
Caroline, are you ready for this?
This is your newest guilty pleasure.
It's the bloodiest part of your week.
Did we say something about it also being happy hour?
Show did.
Because we about to be sipping on some murder. Bloody Happy Hour.
Hey y'all, this is April.
And this is Caroline.
Well, hello.
Oh my God, it's been so long.
It's episode 190.
Oh wow, or 91 or 92, or let's just go ahead and say it's 199.
190. We'll just stretch it out to be.
Stretch it out.
Yes.
This is going to be a multiple episode recording.
And I think this is the episode right before our live show we should have.
Oh, yes.
Tomorrow. So come out to Southern Roots Brewery. I've never felt like I say that right.
Well,
It's a weird word.
listen, we all know I used to have a speech impediment, so I cannot say my R's very well.
Brewery.
So don't try to get me to say rural or brewery because it's going to sound like rural or brewery. So just so y'all know,
Can you say burr?
burr.
Beer?
Beer.
Burr.
When there's too many R's,
You're done.
I'm done.
You're done.
I'm done.
Well, so come out. Claire St. Amant is doing actually the Lake Waco Murder Show story. And if you haven't heard our podcast, you don't have to listen to ours because you can come hear her talk about it. And I don't know what we're going to do yet.
Well, we're going to do the most. So we're going to do an open live show.
We're gonna open
we're going to
up.
just tell you the best story you've ever heard.
Yes, a quick opener. We'll get y'all all buttered up, ready. We're gonna be the lube. We're gonna get y'all ready.
We are going to be the lube.
Get y'all ready for her.
Yeah.
What's probably
That's
how
what
we're
we
gonna
do.
open up.
Yeah, we're going to. Oh.
Your phone has been going off all.
I gotta talk about a stabbing real
Mosey?
quick. No, it's Casey.
Oh, so
This is Bloody Happy Hour.
yes, and we got a live show. So tune in to that. And this is episode 90. And we have a little bit of stuff in the quickie, or do we do? We didn't do a quickie.
It's on
We're
there.
adding it. Oh, here you go.
Well, we were just, there's been a couple of mass shootings or school shootings, you know, it's just really, I'm
One
not,
involves
I ain't
a
gonna
dice
dig for
game.
it.
Oh. One involves a dice game.
So there was a school shooting at Florida State University.
It was Florida State.
Yes. And apparently this kid was the son of a sheriff's deputy and used one of her weapons to do the shooting. And
Damn.
is that the one that was mad over the dice game? Or the
Black
Dallas
kid
one?
was mad over the black.
There was a
dice game.
Dallas shooting, and then there was a Florida State
I
shooting.
mean, if I had to guess, I'm gonna say the Dallas black kid was mad over the dice game.
I think that's accurate.
Let's just guess. and
Yes,
say
that's
that.
actually accurate. The Dallas
Go out on a whim.
shoot, and that kid it ran away. But anyways, the Florida State one, I think it left 2 dead, 6 injured. The last that I heard. You know, it's just
I saw a lot of posts where people were like, "I just retrieved my parent." I think I'm on a Reddit page for some reason, and they're just like, "I just got picked my kid up from Florida State," and it's just sad when you drop your kid off at college and you're wanting them to have the time of your life. And
Apparently,
then this is
there were some kids who were victims of the Parkland school shooting, which was the one in Florida, the Nicholas whatever.
Oh, droopy-eyed one.
Yeah, they were at Parkland High School. They were there while that school shooting happened, and now they're at Florida State, and now they're
Double.
at Florida State when this school shooting happens.
No way.
Can you imagine?
What are the odds?
I don't know, man. But it's like, it's so bad because you get to the point where I feel like where it's like, oh, it's just another school shooting.
Just another school shooting. Oh, man. Craziness.
Yep. Oh, the world we live in.
Well, I have an episode that actually one of our listeners, shout out to Hair Branchet is how I have him in my phone because he does my hair. And he just sent me an image of, it's a double image, and one side is Lord Farquhar, and the other side is
Amy Bishop.
Amy Bishop. And
Y'all,
quite
if you
similar.
have not seen Amy Bishop from last week's episode, you got to look her up because I showed one of my friends today and I was like, please just go look her up and tell me that she does not look like, and before I could finish my sentence, they were like, oh God, oh my God. Yes.
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 Okay. So this is I did this on the very first Patreon bonus episode that we did. And I'm still living my life in fast forward. So I'm apologizing. This is not a fresh story if you're on Patreon a couple years ago. But I went back and I dug deep, and I have at least a new episode to listeners if you haven't been on Patreon. And this is the episode of George Stinney Jr. And if you've ever watched the movie Green Mile,
Oh, yes.
which is a movie that if you've seen it, every time it's on, you will watch it every time it's on. It's a good one.
I don't know. It's 3 hours.
Well, if yours ADHD is Caroline, you will not.
You will
But
not
it's one of
watch
those that it doesn't matter at what point you turn it on, you will watch it. Like, as long as you've seen it once all the way throughout. Is it 3 hours? I feel like it's 2.5.
I don't know.
It's 2-ish.
It's long enough.
But at whatever point that you watch it, if you just turn on the TV, like, you'll finish it. It's really good. Is it a Stephen King movie? It is a Stephen. No. I have Stephen King on here.
It was like a real life. Anyway, I don't know. Don't ask me.
So we're going to South Carolina, and the town is actually called Alcalook, South Carolina. This one's kind of sad, but we try to not make our stories really sad. You'll get pissed, so we'll get real pissed. Unless you're a robot, which Caroline sometimes is, or unless you're racist, which what's going on right now with the whole Carmelo and Austin there's a going on that it'll bring out sometimes your inner racist, but we're not going to let that do it to us. We have a lot of love in our hearts, right?
All the love.
So we're in South Carolina, March 23rd, 1944. 11-year-old June Binnicker and 7-year-old Mary Emma Thames were walking around hunting for flowers. These flowers were called maypops. They were in season. And this town back then, we're in 1944, was still somewhat segregated. Mm-hmm. And so back then what that meant is there was railroad tracks. And really, if you think about it, in a lot of towns, there's railroad tracks. And you cross the railroad tracks, and there's usually like the black side of town. And on the other side, there's like the white side of town. Mm-hmm. So you cross the railroad tracks, and there were the blacks. So blacks were only allowed to live on the other side of the tracks. Now, June and Emma walked and walked and walked, and they did not find any of those maypops. So guess what they had to do? They had to cross over them tracks and go on
the sundown town,
on the black side of the town. Mm-hmm. There's no sundown towns for white people. Because there's these beautiful fields on the other side, right? And they saw fields of maypops. And when they were on the other side, when they're in this field, they ran into a 14-year-old boy named George Stinney Jr. Mm-hmm. And his 8-year-old sister named Amy. So they're standing in the fields, and they were like watching their cow. So George and Amy were in the field, and they were watching their cow. And back then, there are strict segregation laws. You're not allowed to be friends with each other. Like
No,
whites,
no,
not allowed to be
no.
friends with blacks. Me and Caroline's podcast, not allowed. I'm not allowed. I'm illegal right now because I'm miscegenated.
Miscegenated?
Miscegenated. I'm a mixed breed.
Oh.
But June and Emma decide to wander off to their fence and asked if they knew where any maypops were. Okay? Because June and Emma, like, they don't have anything to be scared of. They're just nice little kids, and they just wanted some maypops, and they're determined. Where George and Amy, like, they're black, and they know the rules. And so they just shake their head no, and they take off running into the house. Because they go about their business because they know they're not allowed to be friends with Emma and June. So Emma and June, they continue on their hunt, and so they're just walking down the road, and they got their little baskets. But June and Emma never make it home that night. And their parents are scared, and they're frantic. And so, of course, there's a search. And throughout the evening, George Stinney Sr., so the little George and Amy, their dad, they work at he works at the lumber mill. And so he heard the news, and he works with June, so one of the little girls that's missing, he works with the father. So he decided, I'm going to go help look for this little girl. I'm going to help with the search. And there's like hundreds of residents in this town, black people, white people, they're all helping to search for these little girls because it's scary. And so George Jr. tells his dad, he's like, he says, Dad, we saw the girls this afternoon. They were looking for maypops. And so by the dawn of the following morning, other people come forward saying they saw they saw June and Emma talking to George and Amy. I don't know how, but they saw them. So now people are saying George and Amy are the last people to see June and Emma. So where do you think this is going?
No, we're good.
So girls have not been found. The town is panicking. And a guy named George Burke Sr., I feel like there's going to be a lot of Georges in this story. George Burke Sr. owns the lumber mill. And he decides to grab a couple of men, and they search some property along the property line. And this is like the lumberyard property line, like where they work. So it's 7 a.m. in the morning, and they just happen to find a shallow ditch.
Oh, just happened to find a shallow. Okay,
And
normal stuff.
There's some bodies
In the ditch.
in the shallow ditch.
Oh, no.
And they are waterlogged. They're on their
no.
backs. They are bruised. And their bicycles are placed on top of them. So George Burke Sr. is like a hero. He decides to just look in this magical spot where he magically finds these bodies.
Wow.
And their bikes on top of him.
He must have had some kind of sense of, like, bodies.
Yeah.
Like a heat sensor, you know?
He knew. Yeah. So police concluded that they were murdered somewhere else and carried to the ditch to be hidden there. So whoever did this had to be strong enough to carry them, though, because it's two girls and a bike, right? So there was a post-mortem analysis, 1944. They were attacked by a device that was similar to a hammer head, but they were not sexually abused. That was the post-mortem analysis. Period. The end. Just hours after the girls were found, police cars pull up to a house on the other side of the tracks. Which side of the tracks do you think they're on? The black side or the white side?
The white side.
George Jr. and his brother Johnny and his little sister Amy, so they're on the black side of the tracks. They were all playing outside. The police get out and they arrest George and they arrest Johnny without reason. So I guess back then you don't need probable cause. George tells Amy to go get Mom and Daddy. This would be the last time Amy had ever seen her brother ever. Johnny was questioned for 5 hours, and luckily Johnny was released. So Johnny was older, I think. He was able to convince the police that he had nothing to do with the murders of June and Emma. Plus, the reports that were coming in only stated that the girls were seen talking to George and to the sister. Back then, there's no such thing as Miranda rights, so I guess Miranda wasn't born back then. And he had no lawyer, so there was no such thing as lawyering up. And there was no such thing as you had a right to a phone call back then. So it was just free for all. You could do, the police could do what they wanted. He also was denied food and water. And he was just consistently accused of killing these 2 little girls. How old did I say he was? 14. So they wanted a confession, so they tried to bribe him. They even told him he can have vanilla ice cream. So let's go back to history.
If you gonna tell me you give me Dairy Queen, I'm gonna talk.
Back then, black people were not allowed to eat vanilla ice cream.
Oh my God! What? Could you eat chocolate?
It was pure. You were only allowed to eat chocolate. Vanilla ice cream was too pure. You could only eat vanilla ice cream on the 4th of July.
What?
And you had to have a little ticket. Yeah. So
butterscotch
was made.
You had to
44.
you had to only drink from the certain water fountains.
Yeah,
and all the things.
segregation. Yeah. So that's why not butterscotch. What's the kind that's like butter pecan? That's why butter pecan was made, right? Because they were like, okay, they won't let us make
I don't even
vanilla, so we're gonna make something that's like vanilla-ish. So we'll make butter pecan, and they'll let us eat that. So they were like, we'll even give you vanilla ice cream if you confess to the murders.
Really want the vanilla ice cream?
He was 14. He was a little terrified. He was lonely. He was confused. Like, did he take the bribes? We don't know, because there was not a written statement. There was no recording. There was no evidence of a confession. All we know is allegedly he confessed to
the crime,
the murder.
Oh gosh.
And allegedly, he said that he followed the girls and attempted to rape June and found a 15-inch iron pole to murder them. The police said that he even told them where they could find it, the weapon, but it was never found, or it was never logged into evidence. And no motive was ever given for this alleged confession of this alleged murder. A statement was later released, and a trial was scheduled for 1 month later. It was
my God.
Express. This was a great time. So shit hits the fan, right? George Stinney Sr. was fired by George Burke Sr. George Burke Sr. was the guy who found the bodies, remember? And then a lynch mob attempts to get George Jr. in jail. So you got the daddy gets fired from the lumber mill, right? And then all the white people in town are trying to go and get the little boy out of jail to hang him, right? Because if you allegedly kill or rape a white person back in the day, you get hung. So he has to be transferred 80 miles away to another jail somewhere else.
Mm-hmm.
And they attempt to lynch and kill the family, so they have to sneak and move out of town, states away, immediately. They were not even allowed to say goodbye to their 14-year-old son. So he's alone. He's in jail. He's 14 years old and mistreated, not fed properly, like confused, not like malnutrition. It's April 24th. It's 1944, and it's trial day. And he's being tried for first-degree murder. There are 1,500 people in the courts, all white.
Golly.
They are spitting on him. They're calling him names. He looks around for his parents, or at least one familiar face, but there's not one because black people are not allowed in the courtroom back then. Let alone on a jury. So he did not even have like a jury of his
He had no
peers.
chance.
Oh, no chance.
No.
Prosecution starts. They bring in a doctor, and he suggests that the girls were sexually assaulted. So forget the first post-mortem analysis that says they weren't assaulted. Throw that out, just shred it up. They now have been sexually assaulted. And so now the jury's even more pissed. Then the police officer gets on the stand and he talks about this alleged confession and paints George out to be just a violent, horny teen.
Oh, no.
So then George's defense attorney's turn, and a decent attorney would have been able to at least do something, since there's like no actual evidence and statements don't match actual reports. The statement says that, like, the report says there's a hammer. The statement says it's a spike. There's no proof of a confession. Like, if a lawyer could at least tried, a good lawyer would at least try. But they barely defend him. They don't call any witnesses. They don't refute any claims. The trial lasted 2 whole hours. The jury, let's guess how long the jury deliberated.
3 minutes.
10.
Oh, my God.
Guess who the jury foreman is?
A Ku Klux Klan member.
Yes.
Real?
George Burke Sr., the owner of the mill that found the body, that fired the daddy, that the first George.
This sounds like the Delphi trial.
They recommended the death penalty, and he was sentenced to death by electrocution for 2 months later.
God, man, I wish they would do that shit that fast now. Now it takes like 20 years.
20 years. Governor at the time was Olin Johnston, and he received so many complaints. The complaints were not that he was like executing a 14-year-old boy. Not complaints about that.
No.
But
He didn't do it fast enough. He should have killed him in 1 month.
wait. Oh, okay. The complaints was that he was executing a kid, but not an innocent kid. So they were like, "You're executing a kid," but nobody gave a shit that he was an actually innocent kid, right?
Yeah.
So they were like, at least like just put him in jail, give him jail time.
Yeah.
And then others were like, how in the hell can a little 14-year-old kid kill 2 girls that are about his size, carry them far away into a ditch and a bicycle all by himself without being seen after so many people saw him talking for like 3 seconds? But Olin Johnson did not give a shit. And then George was executed on June 16th, 1944.
Dang.
So the arrest, the trial, and the execution took a total of 83 days.
Wow.
Express.
That's never happening right now.
He is the youngest person to ever die by death penalty.
No.
He was so small he could not fit in the electrocution chair. Mm-hmm. And he couldn't fit the electrocution mask. So they placed a Bible.
Oh, I bet it was awful.
On the chair for him to sit on. His arms and legs were strapped down. He was strapped through the mouth. June and Emma's parents were there to watch. Community people were there. George Burke Sr., the lumber mill owner, and his son, George Burke Jr., were there. They asked him if he had any last words, and he shook his head no.
Oh my gosh, this poor kid.
The face mask was for adults, and it did not fit his face. So the first jolt of electricity fell off, revealing his face, and he had saliva coming out of his mouth and tears running from his eyes. And he was sobbing.
Because it hurt. You get electrocuted.
They did it 2 more times, and he was dead. He was buried in an unmarked grave in Crowley, South Carolina. His family was only allowed to see him 1 time during this whole process. So then 3 years later, so this was all in 1944. In January 1947, a 29-year-old man named George Burke Jr. Okay, so George Burke Sr. was the lumber mill owner, was the guy that found him in a ditch. He lay in a hospital dying. He is the son of George Burke Sr., the jury foreman, the one who found him in the ditch. Their family has been described as bullies, womanizer. He made a confession of killing June Binnicker and Mary Emma Thames. His story was, he said that the 2 girls stopped at the Burke residence to ask Miss Burke if she would like to join them while they searched for maypops.
Oh my gosh.
George Burke Jr. drove up and offered to take them exactly to a place where he knew where there were lots of maypops. They threw their bicycle on the back of his truck, and he put them in his truck and drove them away. Never seen again.
Wow. That's a beautiful story.
He told his dad, and his dad covered for him.
Oh my gosh. How many times do you think that just, God, that shit happens all the time. That has to happen all the time. Oh my gosh.
Law enforcement knew about this deathbed confession 3 years later and
said nothing.
Did nothing.
Of course. What do you do? He's already dead. You killed the guy.
It was 3 years later.
My God.
You could have went after the dad for covering it up.
Well, yeah.
You could have at least cleared his name. You could have compensated the you could have done something. It takes 70 years, so 7 whole decades for anything to happen in South Carolina.
Gosh.
This is South Carolina.
Well, yeah, that's where,
How can you let this happen? So, the Murdochs got away with shit for how long? So, in 2013, attorney Mac Burgess is investigating, so 2013, I feel like was just the other day, is investigating Jim Crow racially unjust trials, and he finds the George Stinney trials. And he has all types of questions. How can this happen? Unfair trial? Who is this George Burke? So he questions all these people. Everyone in town now believes that George Burke Jr. killed those girls. But you cannot take a white man, even now, to trial based on rumors. it was okay when it was a little black boy, but especially not in those times or these times. So he
But
needed
in Boston,
a way.
you can take Karen Reed to trial.
It's a woman. He needed a way to get George Jr. some justice. So he then gets on a phone call, and an 87-year-old man named Johnny Hunter calls him. And he said he was George's cellmate. And they struck up a friendship. And he said that George repeatedly told him that he did not kill those girls. He could not understand why they would kill him for doing something he did not do. So the little black kid was telling him this. Matt talks to Amy, George's sister. She's now a retired teacher, and she agrees to testify as a witness. She will be able to provide an alibi for her brother. Back then, they weren't going to talk to little sister. They weren't going to talk to family, because if they would have talked to them, Amy would have told them back then, my brother never left my side. If they would have talked to family, he was sitting right there at the dinner table with us. In 2014, presenting new evidence in hopes to be granting a new trial, their goal is not to prove that George is innocent or that someone else is a killer. They just hope to prove that George did not get a fair and just trial at this time, and that his execution was unlawful, and that his murder trial was corrupt. And they wait. So on December 17th, 2014, about a year after that, Judge Carmen Mullen said that George Stinney Jr. was officially exonerated for the murder charge, and his execution was ruled unlawful, and his prosecution violated human rights. So a headstone was finally put up in his honor in his hometown with his picture and his birth date, and it says wrongfully convicted, illegally executed by South Carolina. Conviction vacated by court order December 16th, 2014.
Dang.
A memorial was done for him and the family that was left. So, a relative, on this day when this happened, a relative of June and Emma did an interview and said, I do not agree with this. That George Stinney Jr. confessed and he was tried, and those charges need to stay where they're at. He is guilty.
What? What? Wait, what? Ma'am.
June and Emma's family member, South Carolina family member, believes that 14-year-old boy is still guilty.
Okay, he's dead, but okay, that's it. Okay, fine.
He did not confess, but George Burke's son did. So the white boy confessed, the black kid didn't, but it's easier for you to believe that little black kid did it than for you to believe that the man that you knew your whole life did it. And that's what's hard for her to do. And it's harder for her to believe that her neighbor was more evil than the person across the tracks. So in January 2022, South Carolina State Representative introduced a bill named after Stinney, titled George Stinney Fund, in which it would make South Carolina pay $10 million to the families of the wrongfully executed if their conviction was overturned. So George Stinney's family got $10 million, whoever was left, and anybody else that was wrongfully convicted. That's a start, I guess.
I mean, at least they got the money.
But poor George had to sit on a Bible and
get electrocuted.
Yes.
Oh my God.
Which is on, and so that's why on Green Mile, when they're electrocuted in there, that's why that scene was kind of after
so
him.
bad. It was so bad. I know. Wow.
There's
Good
a very
story.
sad story. George Stinney Jr. I'm done kind of early.
Yep. That's how we do it because
right.
we are so efficient.
That is it.
Love it. Love it. Love it.
We'll see y'all next week for a whole new episode. Don't forget to
Stay aware
stay alive.
and always be DTF.
Goodbye.
Goodbye.
This has been a Rogue Media Network production.